Hello, Plaguewood, and welcome to your deck review. This is another deck review in the Sick Whittle Boy Chronicles, so I apologize for having a little bit of a cold voice. I promise I'm better, but this is the stage where all the phlegm and the mucus and the whatnot is coming out of me. So what's going to come out of you is your weird little pee-pee. That's your premise and your practicum. Your premise is the idea behind the deck for this deck. It's, oh my god, Silver Quill, kind of based. I agree. And then the practicum, which is the stuff you put in the 99, and if it helps us achieve the idea of Silver Quill based. So we want to make a deck based around Repartee and the new commander Abigail. It is a hard must that Abigail is going to be our commander. So she, for 2 mana, will put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. Now, those of you who have played Magic for a very long time, you're probably thinking, wow, that's not very good at all. And it's not, which is why we're in bracket 2 right now. We're going to see if we can get you to bracket 3. And you said the struggle was not getting the thing going, but keeping the thing going. So if we start from premise, how shall I break this down? You can do this. It is unlikely to be in the exact way you want. This deck is going to be a little bit of a genie wish. What I mean by that is you can absolutely get an Orzhov deck that cares about targeting stuff and cares about putting +1/+1 counters on and swings for lethal. Will Heroic Stanza and Repartee be the way that happens? Probably not. Because if we want to get a big wide board of counters, when we start talking about bracket 3, we're probably going to start talking about ways to put counters on our whole board. Like, just drop Cathar's Crusade, and then it's like, yeah, Heroic Stanza plus Cathar's Crusade, go crazy, go stupid. Plus, like, Lae'zel, plus I think there's an Ajani that puts a counter on every creature, like, plus that Elspeth that gives them flying. Like, it can happen. My big worry is that most of the levers we can pull to make sure that this works at bracket 3 are going to make it feel a little bit less like Abigail's doing it and a little bit more like we're just doing Orzhov +1/+1 counters. But let's dig in a little bit. No cost restrictions, beautiful. Are there better instant sorceries I can be using? Can we get to the third bracket? Does it pass the vibe check? I think the idea of this absolutely passes the vibe check. So let's go to something that's a little bit more readable. We have 35 lands. That's reasonable. Debate existence is a pretty funny tag. Wow, that's really bad. That's so thematic though. Holy shit, that's a bad card. Jesus. Jesus God. But that's so thematic. All right, this is probably the struggle we're going to be in the whole time. What does this do? Slightly better than Rapier Wit, actually. Okay, but I see what we're dealing with. So we have a couple cards that are just straight up good. We have a lot of board protection. So bad. That's so bad, but it's so thematic. Okay. Does a few different things. Sure. Okay. Again, I'm gonna cough. You're gonna be like, oh my god, he's sick. No, I'm not. Shut the fuck up. Requisition Raid, the things it does, good enough. Silver Quill Charm, the things it does. The first two things probably good enough. I doubt Silver Quill Command is good enough. This is a card that's good enough for draft. I can't really think of a world where this is good enough for our commander deck. So if we're talking about like, okay, what can we cut on our quest to make it to bracket 4? Or bracket 3, sorry. I would say this is a strong option. So what are our repartee effects and what are our good ones? Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature, this creature can't be blocked this turn, and it's a card draw engine. Okay. Creature with counters does something. Cool. We care about modified. Cool. See, now I've jumped around the screen and I have a cough drop in my mouth, and you'd be like, oh my god, he was probably like coughing crazy style off camera. Shut the fuck up. I can't help but notice I see all the cards I talked about us having to bring in against our will. Like Felidar Retreat, Cosmic Grand Zenith, Cathar's Crusade. So if we're willing to bring in cards like this, we can definitely get to bracket 3. The question will be, what cards make up the core of this deck feeling like Silver Quill and not feeling like a +1/+1 counter stack, and how do we preserve those? Because, you know, this ain't Silver Quill, dog. This is just good, and that's okay. Everybody plays good cards. Good cards are fun, but we have to really explicitly define, is the heart and soul of the deck Abigail being the commander? Is the heart and soul of the deck snooping page being in the 99. I don't know what the answer is going to be for you, but you have to pick that because otherwise we can definitely find on a one for one basis plus one's counter cards that are just better than nearly every repartee card and put those in. All right, so let's look at the 8 repartees. We can slow flicker something. We can put an extra counter on something, but it's really cheap. Make a token. We can surveil 1 and give this guy flying. We can put a counter on this creature. Everybody loses 1 life, we gain 1 life, so like Blood Artist. Get an extra counter on this creature, and we can move his stuff around. And Stirring Hope Spinner. Now, are there any other... My first question would be, are there other repartee creatures that we have left on the bench? Because that's not very many. We're probably going to draw one of those guys a game, but not more than one, unless we hit one of our pretty solid card draw engines. 12. So who didn't make the cut? A 4-mana guy that becomes a 4/4 with lifelink. I'm inclined to agree. A 3/3 that becomes a 4/4. I'm inclined to agree. Oh, this is each creature. Okay, that's better than I thought. And then we're missing... Hey, why isn't this guy in? Nani the fuck? This is like your Sun Titan. Maybe we just thought we had opened every repartee cards in our packs, but if we want this to be repartee focused, because my first thought was their curve. Our curve's really low. If we're if we're losing steam in Orzhov, we're either running out of cards or running out of bodies, which is, you know, that's common for many colors. But for Orzhov specifically, you kind of want to be like churning through them really often. And typically the way people do this is they bring something like Sun Titan. They'll have some type of recursion package. Forum Neoscribe can be your Sun Titan. You're not as good as Sun Titan, and I would probably play Sun Titan as well. But strategies that are going to work very well for you are going to be things that are like mass recursion for all of our little shitty utility creatures. Because even the other guys that aren't repartee focused, like Luminarch Aspirant, they're 2 mana. Abzan Falconer's 3 mana. Let me cherry pick real quick. Cosmic Grand Zenith, 3 mana. Leonin Light Scribe, 2 mana. Phalanx Leader, 2 mana. These are all things where we can run stuff like Fix What's Broken. And then if we get into a late game situation, we have Cathar's Crusade. We go, okay, well, I'm going to bring back 15 creatures that all have, that are all 2 mana. I'm going to pay 2 life to bring back my entire graveyard. And then Cathar's Crusade is going to fucking kill you. The only problem with that in my mind is making that feel like repartee, right? Like it's not, I'm not killing you with a scathing word. I'm killing you with a big army of dudes who are kicking you in the head crazy style. Oh man, Silverquill the Disputant in here. So let's think about where are we probably getting distracted? Where can we tunnel this deck in? Make sure that you're not running out of draw power, because only 6 ways to draw cards, not very many. Not very many in Orzhov, especially considering you don't have any card draw in the command zone. I would want to be on minimum 10 things that draw you cards, even if it's just... And if you go into things like Fix What's Broken, you get to play really good card draw engines like Ripples of Undeath and pretend that it's a thematic pick. You're like, no, we're... What would it be? Artistic license? It's something about reusing old words. And you would need a bad Italian accent to pretend you were from Venice. You're like, I'm restoring the classics. Something like that for mulching. Is the bit I'm trying to get to. I'm still a little bit sick, I'm sorry. But we need more ways to draw cards than this, is the straight and narrow of it. I always prefer for them to be engines. I don't think they have to be engines, but I think you're generally better off if they're engines. Other things that are going to work with what you're doing. We have 28 creatures. Most of them are tiny. You can play the classic little weenie stuff like Takesia's Welcome, because these are going to see all your low CMC stuff enter. You could probably even get away with things like Mentor of the Meek, Um, Mainly because most of your deck starts really small, right? These tokens come in small. Zenith comes in small. Uh, your Inkling generators come in small. This guy comes in small. Like they come in small and then they make big. So you're allowed to leverage. You're allowed to leverage all the card draw engines that care about making something that's small. So, what do we want to? What do we want to get rid of to make room to make this a little bit more reliable? I really like Double Strike. That's a really good damage translator. I hmm, Jesus, that's so many words. It's so many words, but that's a genuinely good trigger. We get to check top five, draw a guy. Okay, he's almost card draw. I think I would say leader's talent for sure. What's our commander at? Three. I think we have enough other good stuff to play, and I would want to be very creature heavy, right? This prepares every time I play a creature. I would want to be slamming a shitload of creatures. I would want my, removal to be creatures where it could. I would want my card draw to be a creature where it could. Everything I can do to get the creature count a little bit higher to increase the opportunity to have heroic stanza up. Not that you ever want to cast this, like this is a tremendously bad spell, but we both know that. That's the fun of this deck. Or it has to be an instant or sorcery, right? So I would be very suspect of anything that is an artifact or an enchantment. If it's an artifact or an enchantment, it has to be fucking amazing. Like Occasion's Welcome, Ripples of Undeath, fucking amazing. Leader's Talent, I think solid. Okay, this is like a storm thing. Uh we can almost certainly do better than this only because this wants you to cast multiple, and even if we go up to 10 card draw engines, I doubt we're going to be casting so many spells that we can be confident that we're going to have like a storm count of 3 or 4. We're probably going to be doing like 1 to 2 spells every turn. Killian's cute because he has lifelink. I don't think I would be doing dig site inventory. All right, let me think about how to word this. It feels wasteful to have our commander be based around a really bad spell that puts 1+1+1 counter on, and then have our instants and sorceries in the deck also be that. Like if we want to have this, oh, I'm gonna get a little bit of value when I target my own stuff. Oh, I'm gonna target my stuff with a really bad spell. The rest of the deck needs to honk, and so I would want to. And we don't have an ETB theme for Daydream, so I think the problem we're gonna have is if we want this to feel like Silverquill, we can keep the pretty rough Strixhaven creatures. You can keep the banger enchantments that you have, and we want to swap a lot of the draft instants and sorceries, and we want to try to find better targeted instances. So let me go. Let me go to Killian. What I'm looking for here is a tag for like cares about. Well, synergy target isn't really what I want. I want like, does Daydream have a tag for? I guess I could just go to advanced and say target creature, single target instant source. Sure. So we want, we probably want it to be low CMC as well, which is really gonna box us in fucking fast. And we want it to target stuff we already control. So what we're good at is removal. Sucks because we don't want to target any of our own stuff with removal. Um, There's not dead after all, which I really don't love because we don't want to throw these guys away. We want them to build up over time. Removal, version. Yay, yay, yay. All right. So it looks like we are almost entirely going to be stuck to combat tricks really bad counter edition, and flicker. I don't think flicker. God, there's some type of harebrained scheme where flicker works really, really well, but I think it requires siloing out another portion of this deck so that we have like, okay, these are the creatures I want to stay and put counters on. These are the creatures I want to flicker over and over. Does repartee trigger only when you target them or when you target any creatures? Well, okay. All right. So I'm gonna cook for a second. I'm gonna show you the mountaintop, and I'm not sure if we can get there. But if you could get there, if you could get here, this is how we would get to like bracket three, and you slam crazy style. We would have things like Skyclave Apparition or Fiend Hunter or Lauren of the Third Path. We would need to get up to like 15 to 15 to 20 of these cards that have some type of positive utility when they enter the battlefield. Either they draw us a card, they remove an opponent's threat, and then what we would do is all of your instants and sorceries would be uh flicker, well, white flicker that just flickers, or black flicker, which is the like, I'm gonna swing Lauren of the Third Path at you recklessly, and then when you block it, I'm gonna cast supernatural stamina. And then we would have this host of every game you would only see two, maybe three of them, but I would have these 2 to 3 value ETBs that I'm playing around. I am flickering them to target repartee on 1 to 3 creatures that I'm trying to build up with counters. And then in case of emergency, I can flicker the thing that's been built up. Now, the difficulty here is it's going to spread our cards pretty wide. You would have to do, let's see, cut your ramp. You are land dropping. That's how we'll get 5. That's how we'll get 5 cards back. I think we could stay on 35 lands. Maybe you have to go to 36, 37. We would stay close here. So 35 lands. Go up to 55 cards in the deck. We put in a ton of things, just anything that is a valuable ETB. And then we have 8 repartee cards. That brings us to 63. I like this support team. So that brings us to 70. We would need 15 to 20 flicker spells, because these would have to be instants or sorceries that we're drawing enough of. So that's bringing us to like 85 or 90, and then the rest could be card draw. And that framework is either going to be your favorite fucking deck ever, or it's just not going to work. That is like it's one of the more high variance frameworks. And so I think the things that are important to keep would be like, if you wanted to have a real shot at making it in bracket 3, would be like Cathar's Crusade, Cosmic Grand Zenith, Felidar Retreat, Generous Pup, Phalanx Leader, maybe Shadrick Silverquill. I'm not even convinced you need Shadrick Silverquill, but he's just such a good generic card. But all these other sorceries, everything else that's in the Get Bigger that I didn't just name, I don't think that has to be there anymore. And I think it could get yanked in favor of like, okay, who's my flicker team? My flicker team is like Ravenous Chupacabra. We would want a lower CMC thing so that we could maybe throw in those like a handful of those mass recursion spells, because I was erring on the conservative side for how many slots you needed for all this stuff. You would want like removal that is a creature. Creature removal that is a creature. Artifact and enchantment removal that is a creature. Card draw that is a creature, etc., etc., etc. As many things as we can do that are on a creature's ETB, or at least on a creature to begin with. And then our instants and sorceries are not, okay, I'm going to point at you and make you bigger. Our commander does that when the creatures come in. Our instants and sorceries are, I'm going to flicker you to get another use out of you. And you're going to remove a threat on my opponent's field, or you're going to draw me a card. Like Oh, like this guy clean sucks. Terrible. Another Adventures in the Forgotten Realms banger. Total dog shit. Um, but I would look for. You'd probably have to go to triggered ability. You would take the O tag triggered ability, when enters, and you would say creature Orzov. I would start with less than or equal to 3, just because that's going to be the easy stuff for you to curve out with. And then you're going to look through here for stuff that looks potent, right? I already talked about Lorna the Third Path. Spirited Companion just draws you a card. I don't think you're doing Stoneforge Mystic stuff, but like Skyclave removes stuff. We're not really making tokens. Tataru Taru draws us a card and makes us a treasure. There's like catch up ramp. There's like we have enough stuff. There is enough stuff in this archetype that you could build out that shell of 15 to 20. Um, and then flicker the fuck out of those guys until you find your repartee things and hope the repartee things is enough to get you over the edge or get you to Cathar's Crusade, which will definitely get you over the edge. Uh, and that's how I would do it. And I think you have a chance at making a pretty fun and engaging bracket 3 deck with that strategy, but you have to be pretty heads up about your removal. It's probably going to require a lot of tinkering about like, well, how many pieces of single target removal do I need? How many of these need to draw cards? Da 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 da. You're going to have to go back and forth on this a lot. So feel free to email me if you have additional questions. But there is legs to this idea. I think we've just focused too hard on Strixhaven instants and sorceries. So if anybody in the comments has a different idea, wait, no, I'm sending this to. Wait, we haven't decided. Right. I hope this helps.